Namaskar and good afternoon for everybody. So today I will speak about the 4 changeable mental factors. So before I speak, I will talk about them. So we everybody have a very strong wishing and strong kind of motivation to achieve, better life in the future, also better life, and also this life. So in order to achieve, better life in the future, also in order to have a happy life in this life, within this life, I think it is so important to look yourself every time. Look in your mind. You always check your minds. You always check your motivation. So many people, even include me, many occasions we don't notice, all the kind of dissatisfaction, kind of unhappiness feeling is arising by our own minds. So it's so important that we must notice, the mind, the dissatisfaction, unhappiness, uncomfortable kind of mental state is arising by your own mind. Nobody, gives you really uncomfortable minds, unhappiness mind. So we always think, we always think when you are not happy, oh yes, I'm not happy today because I didn't control my mind in the morning. I didn't control my mind this afternoon. I'm not controlling my mind at this moment. So if you are able to control the negative mind or minds, then the happiness, will be right there. So without controlling your minds or mind, then there's no really hope. You're going to have a kind of happy life. And also when we talk about suffering or problems, suffering not really exists kind of independently. We cannot say this is suffering because due to their own entity. For example, last month the weather was so nice, very pleasant weather. If you compare that weather with another pleasant weather, then you can notice, yes, the last month the weather wasn't really pleasant because there is another pleasant weather than that period of time. Also, suffering and happiness always exist kind of comparatively. So each time when you feel I'm not happy and I have a problem, you shouldn't think, yes, I'm not happy. You should think, or compare with that situation, I'm quite happy today. Sometimes you really think, oh, today I'm so happy, you so feel really enjoy. And also you shouldn't think, oh, today I'm really happy. You should think, yes, compare with that situation, I'm happy but not that happy. Because if you think I'm very, very happy, then after a few minutes, and after a few hours, after a few days, then you will face another kind of mental kind of suffering. So it's so important you always compare. When you feel suffering, you always compare with other when you feel really happy, even though you should compare. So happiness and suffering, it just depends on your way of thinking, it depends on how you look at it. So after you got some information about minds and mental factor and negative minds and positive minds, and for you very easy to control your minds. But when the negative thoughts and emotion arising quite strongly, is reached quite high level, it's so difficult to control, so difficult to keep a distance. But it's already almost 70 or 80% already arised. As I mentioned when I teach the Dura, I said, everything, all the impermanence phenomena arising from kind of 0 point, arising from very small, very low level to higher. Think about when we were in mother womb, we were very tiny kind of particle. Then, few days, few weeks, few months, then we became bigger and better. Now feel how much we are, how big we are. It's same, the inner world, the minds also, is arising from very small amount of minds, then big and big. For us, so important to notice when it's ready to arise. If you notice that moment, then for you very easy to control. You can control right there. When the negative emotion arises quite stronger, they're so difficult to control. You cannot really keep distance. It's look like if there's when you look at the water, if there's a little wind, the wind move the water little bit. When there's stronger wind, you can see there is a stronger wave. If there's really strong wind, you can see a really strong wave. So, our the mental happiness also like this, or the mental suffering also like this. If there's a very little negative emotion, it shake your happiness. If there's a very strong kind of emotion, you have a stronger negative thought, and you have a strong mental problems, mental suffering. As a beginner, I think you always look at your minds, you always looked at the motivation. Because I said motivation is very important, because when we talk about the 4 changeable mental factors, right? Among the 4 changeable mental factors, first one is the regret. It's a regret and worry. I'm not sure it's the worry. The best one is a regret. I regret about something. Regret. The regret can be like positive, negative, very neutral. Regret. When you have some regret about the bad deed, bad action, then the regret will be the positive, is good. Sometimes you have a regret about you did good thing. Sometimes somehow you feel some regret about it, then it is like a negative regret. For example, somebody somebody used very hard sharp,
harsh word.
Yeah, harsh word to someone. Then after a few minutes you feel a little guilty, and you got some regret. You got some regrets after a few minutes. This is good. You notice I did something wrong. This is a positive regret. And sometimes you can see, when you really want to visit holy place. When you visit a holy place, at that moment you feel so enjoy, you really move when you visit the holy place. At that moment you offering a lot of flowers, incense, and also at that moment you give money for the beggar, you offering a lot of candle lights. when you came back from the, the pilgrimage, then you notice, oh, I spent a lot of money, I spent too much money. And you also got little regret. And it's really bad. Because you regret about the positive action. Right? Sometimes, this is positive, like a negative. And sometimes when you went to very kind of beautiful restaurant, you order big kind of breakfast or lunch or dinner, then you ate really big breakfast or lunch or dinner. After 20 minutes you thought, oh, it's no good, I eat too much. Also you got some regret. It's very neutral, no negative, no positive. So as a sentient being, we usually accumulate bad karma, bad action, we accumulate bad karma, bad action. So in order to reduce, in order to eliminate the negative emotions, so negative karma, so there are 4 things so important, 4 things very important. Because this is the power of the object. For example, if I killed someone, then I got really strong regret about it. And then what I have to do, I had to focus like a Buddha, Shakyamuni. You have to really focus to Manjushri or Kongyen, and also Amitabha Buddha. Very clearly you have to focus to them. Then you should have a strong regret what you did something wrong in the past. Because this is the power of object. Power of object. Sometimes you have a very strong sense of compassion towards someone. Also because it's the power of the object. Because when you are able to focus to Buddha Shakyamuni or Manjushri or whatever Buddha, you really able to focus very clearly to the Buddha. It can reduce your negative karma. It can eliminate your negative karma due to the object. Object is very important, very powerful one. Power of object. It can eliminate your negative action. And power of antidotes. Usually, when you kill someone, in order to eliminate the action, you can release, fish. You can release animal from the net. You can release fish from what? Net. Somebody kept a lot of animals. Somebody kept a lot of fish and insect. Also the lobster. So when you release them, also you eliminate the karma which you accumulate due to killing someone, somebody. The best antidote is, if you're able to, develop sense of bodhicitta, if you're able to develop sense of, the great compassion, pure compassion, or eliminate the bad action which you accumulate through killing someone. It's called the power of antidotes. Then the number 3 is kind of, you are not really happy about what you did, you did something, you are not really happy about it. Then you got very strong regret. That's also we call, I really don't know how it, anybody, Sunam, you remember? Or I can use, number 3. It's kind of, you really got strong regret.
Yes.
So I don't know.
You mean the 4 power of...
First is the power of objects, power of antidotes.
And then you promise not to do it again. The great
This is the last one. Okay. You can check in the dictionary, for example, I got very strong regret. That's mean I'm not really happy about the bad action which I did in the past. Also, so when of course, in the past we accumulate bad action, bad karma, we should think, oh, this is really bad, it's really bad. Then you are looking, the consequence is very bad. The last one, then you have to promise really from your heart, I want to do this again and again. Just stop there. So regret, can be positive, can be negative, can be neutral.
It says the recognitions of the bad deeds, the first one, the reliance on the objects,
Mhm.
and then the actions, the remedy actions that you take, and you keep the promise not to do it again.
There's a 4, right?
Yeah, for the first one is recognitions of the bad deeds. So
Yeah,
you have to,
recognition.
you must know that you
Yeah,
did wrong.
recognition. Yeah.
Recognitions, and
Recognition.
then the second one it will be the wisdom on the object, like
Mhm.
Buddha or the compassion, and then the third one will be the remedial actions, which is your
Won't do again.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then the confessions, the way that you confessions, that will be the third one, and the fourth one is promise not to repeat.
Yeah. So I think the 4 is so important. Each time when you remember the bad action you committed in the past, you always eliminate all the negative action through the 4, powerful, 4 antidotes.
4 powers of confession.
Confession, yeah.
Confession.
So regret. And the second one, number 2 is kind of a sleep. Sleep or dullness. I think better to use the sleep. Sleeping, sleep. So this is also, I think, very important practice. The sleep generally is very neutral, no positive, nor negative. Not positive, nor negative. But due to the motivation, the sleep can be positive, can be negative, can be neutral. So usually we sleep, 4 or 5 or 6 hours. If you able to develop good motivation before you go to sleep, then whole few hours will be like a positive due to the motivation. That's why I said I think last time I said, before you sleep, you just, someday you just develop sense of regret about the bad action which you did in the past. Someday you should develop, sense of pure compassion for all sentient beings. Or someday you just develop pure sense of compassion for your brother, sister, and family. So within that motivation, if you're able to sleep, then the sleep will be like positive sleep. Then you can accumulate a lot of merit even though while you sleep. Sometimes before we sleep, we got some kind of negative thoughts about our friends, our family, or about someone. If you sleep within that motivation, then the whole sleep will be a negative sleep. And you can accumulate a lot of negative merit, even though while you're sleeping. And usually, you just sleep without positive minds or with negative minds. You just sleep in neutral, and the whole sleep will be kind of very neutral, not positive, not negative. Not negative, not positive. So look at, usually we sleep, somebody sleeps 6 hours, somebody 4 hours, somebody 10 hours, somebody 8 hours. If you're able to have a good motivation before you sleep, then, even though while you sleep, you accumulate really good karma, good merit. So the sleep can be positive or negative due to the motivation. Sleep.
Sure. Can you give some example about negative motivations to go to sleep?
That's why.
I was just wondering about dreaming, because it's dreaming in there. I mean, if you have bad dreams, is that kind of related to?
Yes, okay. So before I will explain you that due to the motivation. So before you just go sleep, if you have kind of negative thoughts or like bad thoughts, or I have kind of argument with someone and you got some angry, and suddenly you have a strong attachment. So if you sleep within that kind of the mental state, then the whole sleep will be that positive negative. So before you just go to sleep, then you have like good thoughts, developing, you have a sense of compassion for someone, pure compassion for someone, compassion for all sentient beings, then the sleep will be like positive sleep due to the motivation or due to the trigger, before you just sleep. And neutral is just neutral, without having positive or negative thoughts.
Can I ask?
Oh yeah.
So, we have a physical body. So sometimes, I have a stomach ache, and then, you still have to sleep. So there is a pain.
Mm-hmm.
So if you carry a pain into sleep, is it positive, negative, or neutral?
Neutral. Because you don't have kind of, bad thoughts about someone. You just thought, I'm not happy, I got some sick. It is neutral.
So if I am whole body pain, today I work a lot, and so my whole body pain, I was like, oh, so pain. But I need to sleep. So with this condition to go, it's still a neutral.
Neutral. Because it never, it doesn't bring any kind of bad effect to someone.
So you say, my boss made me work so hard today, that's why I'm so tired and
At that moment, if you have a kind of negative thought to your boss, yes, then because you have some bad thought to someone, then they can be
or
like
any bad things.
Yeah.
Okay. So pain itself, it does not. But if that leads to some bad thoughts, that is okay.
Yeah. And also she mentioned about the dreaming. There are so many different perception about dreaming. So one of the Tibetan Lama, he was very high practitioner, very high practitioner, Longdor Namari Geshe, and also he is the one of the Lamrim lineage holder in Tibet. So he divided the dream into 3 parts. So before the middle nights, during the middle nights, and late middle nights?
Early morning.
Early morning, yeah. Before middle nights and during the middle nights, early morning. When you have a dream about something before midnight, most of the dream is happening due to your own experience in this life or this during the day. If you have a kind of dreaming like a midnight, this is happening due to the previous, previous experience or previous karma or related with the previous life. And sometimes you have a dreaming about something in the early morning is related with the future. So he divided the dream into 3 parts. And his students mentioned, his student Dalai Lama mentioned, I really don't trust. I really don't believe this will happen if I have a dreaming something. But he said, if you have a very vivid dream again and again, that means it will happen for you. Very vivid one. Not only 1 or 2 is happening again, dreaming again and again. So dreaming is, I think, we divide into 3. One is the previous life, one is the related to this life, one is related to the future. And also, we are talking about, dreaming like a body. I think I heard, the normal people can be use kind of that dream body. Because do you have a kind of a story in your life in Singapore society? Someone entered into someone's body. Someone possess.
That means some evil spirit.
Not evil. For example, like I'm a Geshe, then somehow somebody said, "Oh, Geshe is entering someone."
Not that before.
Not really ghost, not ghost.
goes is the cross of the soul. It's like Geshe, for example, Geshe and Geshe Samduk. So suddenly Geshe Samduk behave like Geshe and then speak like Geshe Yonten. So we say that Geshe Yontens enter into Geshe Samduk, but both are alive. No, we don't have that kind of case reported just yet in Singapore. Actually, I never heard about this. We always heard about somebody died and then entered another body, but never two alive person.
Alive person.
Yeah, never.
But I think is in my region is very common, very common. And it's very common. It's very difficult to explain. It's truth or really false. It's truth or false, you know. When I was young, I became before I became a monk, I think around 9 or 10. So my sister has a problem. You know, somebody is entered in her body few times. Then when we ask question, and she answered exactly as the other people, exactly. They answer everything exactly, same as other. For example, if I enter to someone's body, if somebody asks who you are, they say, I'm Geshe Yonten. Where are you from? I'm from Ladakh. They exactly answer everything. So is this look like, you know, there's a kind of the gross body and subtle body. The subtle body can enter here and there. Also, the dream bodies look like that, the dream body. So somebody can go to somewhere, you know, during the sleeping time. They can go, you know, somewhere and spend few months, few hours and come back again. You call that like a dream body. It's a very normal one. But the high practitioner can take a dream body as a real body, The dream is very important. Also, you know, sometimes we really don't know why we have a dream. You know, sometimes you don't have any kind of idea, don't have any expectation. You have a very special, like some very unusual dream. Sometimes you have this kind of dream again and again. And one day if you go to like a new place, you can feel, oh, I've been here before, because you have a dreaming this place again, but you never been there. When you go there, you feel, yeah, I've been there. Oh, this is very familiar with me. Because you have a dream about the place, about the land, dreaming. So anyway, you know, dream can be like positive or negative or very neutral. So very important one, before you go to sleep, before you have a sleep, it's so important to keep your mind in the positive way. Then you can accumulate, you know, good karma, you accumulate a merit while you're sleeping. The sleep can be sleep can be positive, can be negative, can be neutral, it's changeable.
So Geshe, here he used two terms, sleep and drowsiness, because these are actually two different.
I don't love to use the drowsiness.
Drowsiness. So
drowsiness.
In your text, is it sleep or drowsiness?
We usually use sleep.
So during sleep, that is actually a mental factor.
Yeah. Okay. And also you shouldn't mix the deep sleep and sleep. When we say the deep sleep, during the deep sleep there's no dreaming. And when you have a really deep sleep, then there's no dreaming. At that moment, you are totally sleep. So when you have a dreaming, at that moment you are not really sleeping. You have like kind of sleeping, half is awake. Ni, we call ni, and also Buddha mentioned very clearly there's two types of sleep. One is we don't have a freedom, it's calm. When you so feel tired, the sleep come automatically. When you feel someday you feel really upset, then somehow your mind is so tired that you feel sleep very easily. If you are too tired, then it's so difficult to have a sleep. And when I was young, not young, I think 10 years ago, I had a very difficult to sleep. So difficult, I sleep like 11:30, 12, and my mind is just going around and again, go around, just going, keep thinking. Then when I look at watch, it's been around 2 hours. I don't sleep. And I'm just thinking. So difficult. I had a very difficult time to have a sleep. And it's good for you. Then somehow I learned how to sleep. When you put your head on the pillow, you can sleep right away. I learned. I have a good experience about that. What you need to do, look at, when you breathe in, out, look at, the wind is going out. When you breathe in, you breathe the wind in out, in it. Then, when you breathe in, you have to breathe very gently. Like, when you breathe out, you just totally breathe, release all the wind. Look like a flat tire. You just release all the wind. Then you have to stop. You don't breathe in and out. You just stop your heart. Stop. Not breathe in and out. Just stop. Then breathe again very gently, very short. Breathe out quite slowly. Then look at all wind is coming in the center of the heart. The heart is coming like this. Then breathe in very gently, very short time, and breathe out quite long. And you say, all wind look like coming in the central part of the heart. Then you just focus there. Then you can sleep very easily. And also, many people has a difficulty. So difficult to have a sleeping, because sometimes they have a lot of worry, and that's why the mind is keep thinking. You can't sleep. Sometimes your body is very weak. You are quite weak. You look very strong, but your body have not enough energy. You feel so tired. That's what you need to do. That moment before you go to sleep, I think you must eat. It's a kind of oily food, kind of details, kind of heavy kind of food that you can sleep. Because when you eat oily food, you reduce the wind which is running in your body. Because when you reduce the wind, then your mind becomes more calm. This is kind of my own experience. I learned how to sleep. And number 3 is, I think, it's difficult to understand, I think, in terms of the English words. What is the number 3? Conception, selectiveness, examination. The number 4 is, discernment, discursiveness, analysis. So Tibetan we have a word, tokpa. Number 3 is choipa. The both one in the mental factor, it kind of is the natural is kind of in analytical mind. Is analytical mind. The both is analytical mind. Selectiveness, selectiveness and examination, discernment, discursiveness, analysis. Selectiveness, examination, right, is together, right?
Yes.
And discursiveness, analysis. That means, look at, when you do some research, when you do some investigation, the mind which is doing some kind of analysis, there's 2 types. One is just very analyze very roughly, not really detailedly, not really, precisely. And another type of mind, which is when the mind analyzes to something, is analyzed very precisely, very deeply. So both mind can be positive or can be negative, can be neutral. Because someone thinking, oh, I should have a lot of money. How I can have a lot of money? Oh, somebody has some money in their bank. Somebody has some money in their, somewhere. And you keep thinking about how I can store the money. So you're doing some study, some analysis, some investigation. This is kind of negative. Negative kind of mind, mental factor, which is the nature is kind of analytical minds, is a negative. And sometimes you keep thinking, okay, I have a suffering, how I can overcome, suffering, how I can achieve Buddha. You just keep thinking, you're doing some analysis, you're doing some study, you're doing some investigation, how to achieve Buddhahood, how to achieve Nirvana, how I can develop great compassion. Also, you're doing some study, right? Doing kind of some experiment. This is a positive. And sometimes you think, oh, I want to go to India, I want to go to Malaysia, how I can go, how I can reach there. Also doing some kind of analysis, some kind of, it's very neutral. So that means both, both can be positive and negative.
So, Geshe, can you tell us the difference between number 3 and then number 4?
Yeah, both mental factor is kind of, the ability is kind of, that entity is kind of analytical mind.
Both are
Analytic mind.
Right.
One is analyzed very precisely.
Okay.
The second, number 4, not precisely. The number 3 is very roughly, not in detail. And also, the analytical mind, which is, the 5 sensation have both analytical mind, 5 sensation. So, the analytical mind, which is around the 5 sensation, this is, I think, roughly analytical mind, not precisely. The 5 senses has the ability to do analysis, but is very roughly, not precisely. The analytical mind, which is around the 6th mind, is very precisely and very kind of very precisely, very detailedly. This is thought, concept, discernment. Discernment, the meaning usually what does mean discernment?
It's more precise, right?
Very precisely, right? Discern.
But selectiveness is also saying something that is very selective.
You don't have to be
precise, but
so
you're just jumping,
you're just
wondering,
picking something.
cherry picking.
Yeah.
But conception itself is like you are forming a concept, right? Like you must have a concept or going towards
Yeah,
that.
some idea.
I think the concept
It
is
so precise.
very direct translation. Thought.
Yeah.
So, so I think first 2 are very clear. The last 2 one, I think, is very important for us. Before you do something, before you say something to someone, first you really need to think roughly. Second, that you really think very precisely, detailedly. Then, after you did something, after you involve something, then you won't have a kind of regret. But most time when we do, somebody says something, say, oh, I'll go with you, I'll do this, I want to do this, because we don't do analysis. Even though sometimes we try, but we don't do in a very precise way. So each time when you need to do something, you just sit, quietly and think very carefully, think very detailedly. Then you won't have a regret after you did something, after you go somewhere. First, Second one, if you do kind of, before you do something, if you just sit quietly and think more carefully, then you have a less kind of misunderstanding. You can have of course we will have some misunderstanding here, but you have a less misunderstanding. You will have a less trouble. So yeah, this is this. I think now I just finished the meaning of changeable. It's changing by motivation. It's changing by the certain object. Okay, so before so next time I will talk a little bit the gross level, mind and subtle level, and the little point of view from the Tantrayana, which is very interesting. But before I talk the gross and subtle levels, so I will let you know, because in this paper they said, Mahayana and kind of Theravada, Abhidharma tradition. It's not really correct one. Even according to Mahayana tradition, the number of mental factors just a number of many differences. So we have 51 mental factors. As well as we have 46 mental factors, right? 51 and 52, 46. Then there's a more. Okay, 46, 51, 52, again like 75, 78, 94, 112, 117, 119. Even though within the Mahayana tradition, the number is a bit different. Everybody got number? 42, 51, 52, 75, 78 mental factors, and 94, 112, 117, 119. And the 190 is the higher level, higher numbers. So why there is a different numbers? Some text says 51, 52, 75, 70, because I think all these texts are in a different commentary on different sutra. Different sutra has a different commentary. The based on different sutra, and this number is different. So, of course, I think within a few months, you could have the English version. That is, I think you can study the number in detail. So, I think I talked very roughly about the 52 or 51 mental factors. So, when we had a collective topic, I mentioned about the minds. Is that we cannot see the mind. We cannot have a kind of picture of the mind. When you open your heart, you cannot see the mind. When you open your brain, you cannot see your mind. So this is, I think, very, very, a big question. Where is the mind? What does really mean mind? So, unless you don't have a good understanding of your mind, unless you don't have a kind of really belief in minds, then for you so difficult to believe in the previous life, in the past life. It's so difficult to believe in kind of Nirvana and Buddha. Because generally, we are Buddhist. We say Buddhist and non-Buddhist. The Buddhist, the name, the term comes from Buddha Shakyamuni, but there's another term we call, the Nangpa. We call the, belief inner and belief outer. All Buddhists we call belief inner. Means, this means, the suffering which you face is come from your mind, from your karma. The happiness which you experience also is coming from within your mind, within, nothing just coming from outside. Of course, when you feel cold, we feel cold. Because when you say, I feel cold, I'm not happy, because your minds, your feelings experience the cold. Right? Let's also look at the happy just depends on your minds. And suffering also depends on your mind. Sometimes look at, when you really feel cold in the cold weather, like a Tibet, at that moment you think, oh, compared with the hell, oh, not really cold, because I am cold, I'm warm. Suddenly you feel warm. When you go really, when you walking in the street, the weather was so hot, you should think, oh, compared with that, it's not really hot. And suddenly you feel coolness. So that's why, the Buddhist also, there's another meaning for the belief in it. Everything, depends on in, nothing out. And because of non-Buddhists also, we call the belief in outer. Look at this mean, even the Hinduism, Jainism, and Christianity, Muslim, the Judaism, everybody believe, look at, my happiness is given by someone, it coming from outside. My suffering also coming from outside. Everything depends on them. It's more looking outside, outer. We Buddhists always looking in it. My happiness comes from my mind. My suffering also depends on my mind. My nirvana also depends on my mind. My health also depends on me. Nothing depends on the Buddha. So, so it's so important to look in and check in it. You shouldn't think, oh, is the Buddha going to give me happiness? The Buddha is going to give me suffering. You shouldn't think this way. Buddhist, there are two meanings. One is just believe in, follow the Buddha teaching, we call Buddhist. Second, believe more inner, we call the Buddhist too. So next, okay. So we talked a little bit about minds and mental factor. So what do you really think? The mind is, just we believe in mind or mind is not really exist. What do you think? Just only body like a brain or a channel, a blood, does it, or mind is really exist separately or not? What really do you think? That's so difficult to understand. Mind is separate than the brain function. Mind is separate than the my body. Mind and body is oneness or is separate? What do you think?
It's difficult to say in words what you think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not separate, but it's also different to the actual body.
Not oneness. Not one, right? That's been true.
Yeah.
Mind and body. So we are not really talking about like hand and leg, we're talking about a subtle body. What Sonam do you think?
The closest I can think of is electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So electricity itself, it's just electricity that it flows, the voltage, and then you need those wires, you need the conductor, you need a channel where they can flow. You need a certain object when it heats, and then you heat it up, you become hot. So you have a generator. So mind is something like electricity. The rest of the things like the wire, the appliances, everything that we had is like you can call it the mental factor. Then the hardware itself, it will be the five sensual that we have. It's something like that in a concept. So without the hardware stuff, the electricity doesn't doesn't do anything or anything, but does it exist? It does exist, but it doesn't do whatever it is. Like the mind, current mind, and without this body, it doesn't do whatever we do, experience whatever we experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say is that a mind or not a mind because you can't prove it. But when things and circumstances meet together, all the conditions are right, then it becomes something. So like you have a light, and you've got an eyeball, and I got a consciousness, I see things. Without the mind, I have an eyeball with a light, you still don't see things. It just, by far, the light touches the eyeball.
Look at, just take the electricity and light example. The electricity is totally separate than the wire, right?
Yeah.
It's totally separate than the bulb, the tublet. So there's a wire, there's a tublet, and there's not really the energy, the electricity, there's no light. That means it's very clear the electricity is totally separate than the wire, but it very much depends on the wire in order to have a light. Then look at the body, in order to move and speak and watch, we need this kind of thing. But the real question is if the mind is totally separate than the body or not. Yes, we can see the gross level body is very separate than the mind. When you go to the subtle level, I think is very close to the Trinity. The Christian talking about the Trinity. Look at, we say, the Buddha body, Buddha mind, and Buddha speech is just one book of oneness. Because Buddha doesn't have a gross level of body, Now the Buddha has a very kind of subtle body. The subtle body is, so we talk more in the next time. The subtle body is, we call, very subtle kind of energy, very subtle, the direct translation becomes very subtle wind. We're not talking about the gross wind. And look at, and the minds and the subtle body is inseparable. Inseparable. Look at, we say we're going to next life. This body is not going to take, the body, the bone, and we have to live here. The mind is going to next life. How the minds can travel, can go to next life, from this life to next life? How? Because the wind transform out of this, the subtle wind to next life. The wind carry the consciousness. That's why we say talking about the power. Power is one of the very famous, very popular practice in like a Tibetan Buddhist. I don't think like the Theravada talking about power. Look at, maybe it's a power, like transformation, transform your mind. Because before the people pass away, the practitioner must know the person is having death yet. That means the person remains in very subtle level of consciousness. It remains still alive. All the brain functions stop, the breathing stop, heart is no more like a breathing is totally stopped. It's not like totally dead body. But the subtle mind still remains within the body. And the practitioner who do, the practitioner who does the power, he or she must know that the consciousness is still in their body. Then, through his practice, he tries to lift up the subtle mind from heart to the kind of neck to head. Finally, it is bring the consciousness from here to transform the mind from body, like transform power to transform. This happened because of the wind. So this kind of wind we call subtle body. And the mind, which is very much depend on the subtle body, then we call the subtle mind. When the subtle wind move, then there is kind of sound. And we call it a subtle speak. body, mind, and speech. It also makes sense. Look at. So we have very, 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 very tiny, like a insect, or very tiny sentient being. We cannot see through our eyes. We have to use the like a microscope. Then you can see. Also, there's one question. Now we are talking about a lot of germ, like germ, and also we're talking about the bacteria. Are they sentient being or not? If they are sentient being, their body is very, very subtle, very small. If the body is very small, think about the wind which is in their body is more subtle than the body. Then think about the minds and the consciousness, and of course they have a negative thoughts. It's so subtle. The body is, of course, is so subtle. And mind is much subtler than the body. The wind is more subtler than the body. So, according to even though Buddhism, we talk about subtle body, subtlest body, the most subtlest body. Then means gross mind, subtle mind, most subtlest mind. So what will happen when we die? Right now we can see, we can hear, we can feel it. So before we pass away, maybe a few hours away, then it's so difficult to see, so difficult to hear. Then slowly, the five senses dissolve somewhere, no more five sensation. Then next, there's no more five sensation, then there's kind of thoughts, negative thoughts and positive thoughts and very neutral thoughts. Somehow all these thoughts dissolve, no more. It dissolve or it's not like disappear somewhere. It's not really, it's not going anywhere. It's not like dissolve somewhere. Then think about, just before our mind left this body, that there's no five sensation, that there's no really negative thoughts and positive thoughts, no attachment, no desire, no anger. It's very, very subtle. And we call it clear light mind. Clear light mind. It doesn't mean the mind has a light. So that clear light mind carry all this karma, positive, carry to the next life. Then it's so subtle, they transform in, the mind is transformed in the mother womb or in any kind of life form. Very subtle. Then this produce subtle to gross. Gross. Finally, it produces everything. Restart. Dissolve. Finally, be dead. Arising, we said, is born. We just, already like this. Dissolve, finally to the subtle level mind. That when the subtle level mind left this body, we say, the person passed away. And the subtle mind, produce the gross level of mind, then we say, born. So that's what is the big question is, minds and bodies, one or separate, whatever. This I think very important topic. So when we say gross level of mind, there's two different perception, two different view. View from the based on Sutrayana, view from the Tantrayana. Okay? Based on Sutrayana, when we say the gross mind is subtle mind, we can pause it due to difficult understanding. When it's so difficult to notice, so difficult to comprehend, when we say subtle mind. Easy to understand, easy to comprehend is a gross mind. It's based on Sutrayana. But based on Tantrayana, when we say subtle mind and gross mind, it depends on the energy. If the energy is so subtle, and the mind which is depends on the subtle energy, then we call subtle mind. The energy is gross, The mind which depends on the gross energy, that we call gross mind. Okay, according to Sutrayana, difficult to understand, difficult to comprehend, it is so subtle. Easy to understand, easy to feel it, easy to comprehend, that we call gross level mind. Tantrayana is different because according to Tantrayana, the mind which depends on subtle energy, that we call subtle mind. The mind is very depends on the gross level energy, that we call gross mind. The energy is nothing more than the subtle wind. Subtle wind. Energy doesn't mean much of power. But many people use the energy, subtle energy, gross energy. I like to use gross wind and subtle wind. And also, another question, when you look at, for example, when you look at the photo, we can see the photo. So, our mind, our eyes consciousness going to that all the way to the object, or the object is coming to this side. How we can see things? Right? So when you look at towards someone, your mind is going all the way to there, or the object is coming this way, the image is coming this way. How? And also right now, if you think something your home, you remember them, things, and your mind is going to over there, or the image is coming here, or just you carry the image. That's why many scientists say that the light is the fastest phenomenon which is traveling very quickly. I don't know how many, the sun is like 6 or 7 minutes. But we say, the mind is faster than the light. So, within very subtle, like minute, you can think so many things. The light is going one direction and coming one direction. Mind is not like this. You just think this way, going this way. Within the very milliminutes, man can have a lot of thoughts. So we believe, the mind is the faster than the light. So when we say the mind is faster, then we believe the mind is going and coming, going and coming. So this another question is, mind is really going over there or not? And also I said, when we talk about Dura, look at, everybody believe, right? So now you believe you are in the classroom, you are in the, like this hall. So I will really sure you are not dreaming.
I cannot be sure.
Cannot be sure, right? So difficult to say, I'm not dreaming, I'm here. How you can prove yourself, I'm not really dreaming?
There's this technique which they teach people to do when you're supposed to be in a dream. Always check whether by pulling your nose.
How do you know you're touching your nose?
No, when you're dreaming, I did try before. When I was dreaming, I was supposed to hit somebody, but I put my ear. It's a bit different from usually, because when you pull your ear, it doesn't stretch. When you're in a dream, it stretches. So I put it again.
Can you touch your ear now?
Of course, I can touch my ear now.
Are you really touching your ear?
I know I'm conscious. I'm not sleeping.
How do you know?
Probably by the physical aspect.
No, that's why when you are dreaming in the sleep time, you really, when you see beautiful dreaming, you're so happy.
Yeah.
When you are scary dreaming, you feel very upset. You have within the sleeping, dreaming, you have a happy moment, you have an upset moment, you have a regret moment, you have a kind of appreciation moment. So now we think, I'm not really dreaming. After you achieve enlightenment, if you look at your whole life, you look like totally dreaming. So, someday for me it's so difficult to say I'm not a dreaming, I'm in Singapore. Maybe I'm not in Singapore, I have a block wrong dreaming. think this way, then finally you can understand things are like there's a that example, right? Like a bleeding star
I don't know that.
at analogies
Analogies.
of impermanence.
Okay.
Star, bleeding star, and the lighting like a dream.
It's like the
Blinking star.
The Dhamma Sutra.
Yeah, Dhamma like blinking star, and the light, wave with the light, and also the magician, the magic, and the drop of the grass,
Dew.
dew.
Oh.
Look at. You have to think this way. Then finally you can understand. Things like look like a bleeding kind of star.
Visual aberration.
Anyway, there's 8 analogies.
It's like a dream. It's like an illusion. It,
Or
一切有为法，
the dreaming and the light,
yeah.
thunder light.
如梦幻电泡影。I know in Mandarin,
Yeah.
but want to translate to you.
Anyway, so I think there are the 8 analogies very important for understanding. In order to understand, things are impermanence. Also, something is useful. When you have a really kind of big loss. In fact, it's really loss. The big we have a big loss. You think maybe I'm really lost. I have a kind of dreaming. It's for very easy to have a calm mind. If you really think I thought that I really big loss, then you are not happy. Some of you have to think that like dreaming.
Changing of mind, changing of the way you think.
Yeah. Okay, so next, I talked a little bit about the subtle mind and the gross level mind. The next, I think, so we will talk a little bit about the dissolution, dissolve. So when we drive, what is the procedure, precise? What's the order? So, okay. So, I think we finished about the mental factors. I hope you got very, the limit information from me. It's good you got some seeds. So, in the future, when you have a time, you can read more book about minds and mental factors, and you can read more book about, the different types of negative emotions.
Okay, Sheila, do you open for questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
So that means that in general, the subject is to teach us to take note of the kind of minds that arise, negative minds.
Mm-hmm.
Try to stay clear of them and change them to positive. Understand them, how they arise. And focus more on the positive aspect of the type of mind.
So it looks like you're walking on the grassland. The land is so big. There can be poison flower. There's a medicine flower. There's so many different types of flower on it. Some flower is really good for your health. You just pick and smell and touch and look at it. And some flower is really bad for your health. You don't touch, you don't look at, you don't smell. When you smell the poison flower, you get sick. You're going to die. So the mind is the inner world is like a big land with so many different types of flowers, different types of things. Some flower is really good for you. You must notice and pick up the flower and smell and touch and just eat. It's good for you. You must notice that flower and that flower is poison. It's going to kill me. It makes me sick. Some flowers, okay, it have a little poison, it make me little uncomfortable, it's not going to kill me. That means within in your inner world, there's positive minds. You must notice, you must develop furthermore. You must notice those are the totally negative and not allowed to arise. Even though when you notice it is arising, you just suppress or use antidotes, minimize. And someone is not really positive, but makes you a little uncomfortable, even though you don't even let them arise. It looks like you are walking the big line with a good information. Then the practice of Buddha Dharma is nothing more than less, develop the positive mind, minimize the negative minds, and finally you develop more and more the positive mind, minimize the negative minds. In the future, one day you won't have any negative minds. You will reach the zero level of negative minds. You will reach the zero level of destructive minds. And we call Buddha. So the main purpose of study of mind is look like that. And it is not just enough to have information. Look at, you have a good information about the poison snake. You have a good information when you see the poison snake. If you touch, then your information is useless. Now you got some information. Yes, anger is really bad. So you notice you have information. Anger is very bad. But the anger is arising. If you let it arising, then the information which you got is the useless. That's why most of us, even include me, I have a good, information, but I still, the anger is arising, attachment everything is let it arising. I'm not really, practicing antidotes all of them. So the main purpose is studying about money is like that.
But sometimes though, if you get too much of a positive mind, then could that lead to attachment? So therefore, it's perhaps better to be more neutral.
That's why
Is
attachment and desire is different.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So if you have a
if
true
you're over positive, may that lead to attachment and desire?
Yeah, that's what we got to say is so that's why first we have to know what does mean attachment. Exactly, the meaning of attachment. Look at the definition of attachment is the mental factor, one of the mental factor which is focus or hold the beautiful object, focus on the object as a beautiful, and so difficult to apart the mind from the beautiful object. And it has a kind of energy or ability to give up suffering. If you have a lot of positive minds, I don't think it's going to reach you in the suffering side. So think about, if you are really compassionate person, great compassionate person, yes, then you someday you face some problem. You're really compassionate. Someone is fighting, two persons is really fighting there. You really want to separate them. And one thought, oh, he's that side. He thought I'm the that side. Finally, both of you going to, attack me. It happened due to my compassion. But even though both they attack you, hit you, then you notice, yes, due to my compassion, but you got some injured. In the deep down, I don't think you have kind of regret. In deep down, you will be happy because I did a good job. Look like it leads you in the suffering side, but in the reality level, it's not really. But I think it's so difficult to say, it's only positive minds, how we will be look like. Until now, we're facing both sides. If we have a positive mind, we have a negative mind. If there's no any positive negative minds, what will we look like? They will be totally happy. If there's not any kind of suffering, it's so difficult to say I'm really happy, right? So we have to ask to the Buddha how to feel. It's so, I really don't know.
But even positive, you have different levels of positive.
Mm-hmm.
And positive itself, it has separate entity. And when you have a separate, then you will have this one and that. So all are happiness, and you like this happiness, you do not like that happiness. So what do you call the do not like that happiness? Or you don't like that positive? Is that a negative? So can you have a positive without a negative?
So yes, we
that's
believe.
one theory.
Yeah. So far, we believe we can have a positive mind without negative minds. So look at historically. So we believe Buddha Shakyamuni, he eliminated all the negative minds. Finally, he achieved enlightenment. And we believe in that moment he didn't have any negative thoughts in mind. Eliminated everything. But I don't know what kind of sense of feeling did he have.
I guess you would be enlightened to know.
Yeah. Okay, I think we just stop here.
Sorry, Geshe, can I quickly just chip in one question?
Okay, no.
Is mind one or many? Because just now when you explain, you do use gross mind and subtle mind. And you do even give an example that the subtle mind goes somewhere. So with that statement, it sounds to me that the mind, it can be separated. So if you can separate it, means it has to be a something, then it can be separate. So it must be a one, and that one, that is a breakable one, and it can be a many. So if that, so the question is, did I misunderstood that?
It's not really misunderstanding because you got some question. Because when the gross level minds, then there's many minds, the five senses. And the five senses dissolve in the subtle mind, it doesn't mean the five senses become in one. There's a many subtle level, many different types of subtle level mind. When all the subtle levels of mind dissolve into subtlest mind, it doesn't mean all the subtle levels of mind become just one mind. It's not like like a big pipe. Within the big pipe, there's so many tiny pipe. You can put within the big pipe, you put all small pipe in it. One space. Remember one pipe?
So you mean like big pipes and then you channel
Yeah.
a very thin one?
Yeah.
So it can go up to a very thin, the tiniest, and you call that a subtle mind.
Yeah.
So when the mind it is in the subtle form, the gross level mind does not function.
Remains as a no more function. You are right. When we reach very subtle levels of mind, the gross level will never function. It looks like it remains as a energy or remains as a potential. Continuing there, but remains as a potential. Is not really functioning. Look, when the gross level mind is functioning, the subtle level mind still can function. When the subtle level mind is functioning, the gross level mind is totally dissolved in the subtle level mind, in the subtle mind. That's why during the clear light mind, there's only clear light mind is functioning. All the gross level mind dissolved in the subtle level mind. It doesn't become one mind.
So it doesn't split into something else and combine.
No.
So the questions of is mind one or many So it does not exist. It's not a valid question.
It's really a valid question. Valid question. Because when you say mind is one or many, we say mind is one, but there's many minds. Table is one, but there are many tables. Table just generally. Table is one, there's many tables. Mind is one, but there's many minds. And this question I ask, when we talk about Dura, the continuum of the mind is always separate. All one mind can change another mind. For example, anger can be changed as an attachment. Attachment can be changed as an anger. Or anger attachment totally different root.
Yes.
This is a big question. That's why I say in the Tibetan monastery we have two different views. Somebody believes the anger is always the continuous anger. Beginning to the end is anger. Attachment. Ignorance. They all change each other. The continuum is totally separate, totally different channel.
Different channel.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question, and also you should think this way. So thank you. I think it's little.
Sheila, one question.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
This subtle mind, right? Okay. Do you have this thing called subtle consciousness?
Yeah.
That's when we talk about Bado, right? It's a
Yeah.
transference of consciousness.
Yeah,
We
because
never say transference of subtle mind.
yeah, you can call subtle mind, you can call subtle consciousness, and also you can call the clear light mind. Clear light mind, and clear light mind and I think subtle consciousness is not exactly same one. Clear light mind. The clear light mind is the subtlest mind. It look like permanent, but not really permanent. You call yuksem, innate, right? Innate mind. Clear light, it's like innate. It look like it's always there. Clear light mind. Innate. Yeah.